Republicans continue to betray the American people. I say this as a conservative. I'm not happy about this at all. Perhaps you guys saw over the last couple of days, there's a new act that's been coming out that's been getting a fair amount of bipartisan support. It's called the Dignity Act. And essentially what this act is, it's a mass amnesty act. It stipulates that for individuals who are in the country illegally, who have been in some form or fashion paying into the system, have been here longer than 5 years, etc., that they should just be able to become American citizens in some type of speeded up process. The issue with this, of course, and you're going to see this particularly in this video, which this video honestly is fairly nuts, is the fact that Republicans, in order to kowtow to what they think is the majority, are willing to sell the nation or have the nation be transformed into something that, one, it was never intended, but two, if it was to be transformed into, would be so far removed from what the founding fathers desired that it would be completely unrecognizable. Let's go ahead now and take a look at this. I'm going to preface this video. I have no ill will toward Fox News or Brian Kilmeade or anything. They're just presenting what is going on. But the claims that the guests make in this video are truly off the wall and nuts, particularly some of the historical claims that are made in this video. And then finally, what is so interesting to me is this. Donald Trump ran on a campaign to enact mass deportations. And the fact that the Republican Party is shifting this far to the left in order to kowtow to votes, again, just shows me that the vast majority of Republicans in Congress have no idea what their constituents want and are there clearly just for the money. So let's go ahead now and take a look at this. And I'm going to stop this, of course, and give you some of my thoughts, but it's truly wild. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below.
For decades, the presidents have agreed the U.S. must crack down on illegal immigration. You saw Democrat and Republican, right? Now lawmakers are trying to turn that shared goal into policy. At least one is. And hopefully Democrats will flash back and understand they used to agree with this. It's a bipartisan bill known as the Dignity Act. It promises tougher enforcement and worker protections while offering certain undocumented immigrants legal status without citizens if they pass background checks, pay taxes, and stay employed. Supporters are calling it reform, while critics are calling it amnesty. Let's ask the Republican New York Congressman Michael Lawler, who co-sponsored the bill, and Democratic immigration attorney Michael Wilds, who is the immigration attorney of Melania Trump. Welcome to both of you guys. Great to see you. Tell me about the Dignity Act. Expand on it, Congressman Lawler. And is there other Democratic support for this?
Yeah, Brian, this has broad bipartisan support. In fact, this Congress, we have added significantly more co-sponsors than last, because I think folks do recognize that we have a problem. Immigration has not been reformed since 1986, the year I was born. And the fact is, our immigration system is fundamentally broken. President Trump was right to focus on securing the border, and he has effectively done that. We've had 9 straight months of net zero illegal border crossings. He was right to focus on the deportation of criminal aliens. The next step is to actually fix the broken system. This bill is common sense. It said...
This is so incredibly nuts to me on so many levels. Before we continue, just going back even here to the 20-minute mark, looking here, this bill, quote, prevents illegal hiring and protects American jobs. Okay, this latter half will be debunked by what we're going to see going forward in the bill. We've seen for decades now politicians talk about actually trying to enforce E-Verify, which means to prevent illegal hiring practices. This has never actually been enforced. The reason it's not been enforced is that there's an economic incentive to not do so. Big corporations, as well as individuals who hire illegal labor, know that they can pay illegals under the table at much lower costs than the American worker under the U.S. law. And so they'll continue to do this, and this has been going on in every facet of industry for a very long time. Dreamer Protections grants legal status paths to permanent residents. This, of course, essentially goes arm in arm with what's going on right now in the Supreme Court when it comes to birthright citizenship. As long as someone is born in the United States, regardless of whether their parents are citizens or not, they are going to be an American underneath these insane policies. This, of course, strips away any semblance of a nation as traditionally understood by Aristotle, Aquinas, any conservative philosopher, And it essentially reduces a nation down to papers and to legal status. An American is not one who happens to have a U.S. passport or a U.S. birth certificate. That doesn't make you an American. What makes you an American is the fact that you have been part of, if you will, an unfolding story in American saga that's rooted in several things. Number one, most common, but not totally exclusive, to a European identity, in the sense that you come from Europe and you have an English understanding of the world, or a European understanding of the world through your philosophy. Also a Christian ethic, but an individual who comes here, say, from Bangladesh off the boat and is practicing Hinduism, just because they went through the legal status does not make them an American, regardless of what the majority might want to say on the subject. The Dignity Program, a 7-year illegal status program allowing undocumented migrants to live and work legally. Again, what's so interesting to me is, number one, this act, quote, protects American jobs and yet allows illegal undocumented workers to remain and to work illegally. Well, who's going to be taking up all of these jobs? Illegals. Because again, people know that they're never going to actually enforce E-Verify. And so through this bill, individuals will continue to take American jobs and American income, go and buy American homes that belong to Americans, and they'll continue to, if you will, scam the American worker to gouge them. And finally, update visa categories to align with 21st century economic needs. This, of course, rings very much so true when it comes to the H-1B visa program, as well as other like-minded programs, which say that Americans just don't have the education or the intelligence to do these great jobs that are required of them. And so in order to update our economy to 21st century economic needs, we actually have to allow foreigners to come into our country, whether they're legal or not, and to take care of us. This policy is completely America last. We need to be, as Americans, focused in on the priorities and the needs of the native-born American population, not the entire world. Elon Musk said a long time ago, and I think he's right about this, that the West has succumbed to what he terms as suicidal empathy. And you guys are going to see this suicidal empathy in exchange in just a second here with this second guest. But it's this idea, essentially, that as long as a nation feels empathetic toward individuals who are of a suffering nature outside of its borders, it should allow people to come in. That, of course, is wrong. Now, we're going to finish up here with Mike Lawler, but I want you guys to see what this next individual says, because it's arguably 10 times worse.
Broken system. This bill is common sense. It says if you've been here more than 5 years, so not the people that came under Joe Biden's disastrous administration, but the people who have been in this country more than 5 years, 10, 15, 20 years, whose children and grandchildren may in fact be American citizens, they would qualify if they have not committed a crime. They pay back taxes, they pay a fine, they have a job, and they do not collect government benefits. They would qualify for a legal status, not citizenship. They would be precluded from citizenship. But this would get people out of the shadows and start to fix the broken system so that we can address some of the major challenges. The fact is, we have over 25 million people in this country undocumented. You're not rounding them all up and kicking them out. The criminals need to go, and the president has been right to focus on that. And the last thing I'd say, Brian, the president exposed many of the Democrats during the State of the Union when they refused to stand for protecting American citizens over illegal immigrants. I want to end sanctuary city policies. Actually having a comprehensive approach here is the best way to do that and force the Democrats' hand, end the sanctuary cities, deport the criminals, secure the border, and fix our broken system.
Michael,
the broken immigration system is there because of policy acts like this. Reagan's biggest mistake, in my opinion, outside of some of the cultural wars, was the fact that he went ahead and opened up a massive amnesty program to the millions who shouldn't have been in the country at that point in time in the 1980s. When did America become the dumping ground for the world's problems? The problem that we have in our society is that we are willing to kowtow and to sell our culture completely down the drain in order for individuals to come here and to, quote, have a better life. But what about the better lives of Americans? What about all of the kids right now inside of our society who can't afford jobs, or can't have jobs, I should say, can't find them? They go and apply to a billion different places and can't find them. Can't afford any type of housing. They have to be 40 years old at this point in order to become a first-time home buyer. They have to room up with 5 or 6 different roommates, and they all need to be working 2 full-time jobs in order to actually get anywhere. This is the problem. We are not focusing in on native-born Americans here. And right now, when we look at all of the emphasis in which either the administration is putting on, this current conflict with Iran, or when it comes to just individuals in Congress giving lip service to, oh, we're America first, and we continue to allow illegals not only to cross the border, but now, as long as your crime's 5 years old, you can stay in the country, you can continue to be here. What we have to do is deport every single last illegal alien and not let them come back. That's what we have to do. Every single one of them has to go. Every single illegal has to go. Every single one. And we cannot allow them to return to our country. We also, on top of that, in my opinion, the fact that crossing illegal into the country is not a felony in the U.S. Code, but it's actually a misdemeanor, is nuts. We need to raise it to the level of a felony. If you come into our country, you're going to be in prison for 20 years. You're going to be busting rocks at Leavenworth for 20 years. That would be a great deterrent. But there is no deterrence. That's the problem. There is no deterrence in our society in order to stop illegal migration. We have individuals who say, okay, as long as I have a child inside of the system, I can have that child can be an American, and they can be endowed when it comes to all of the different benefits of the American society, from healthcare to housing to this, that, and the other. We can have the culture transformed because we can have our history textbooks altered. We can have Spanish now become a major language in a major region of the United States, to where commercials are in Spanish, instructions are in Spanish, all kinds of things now are in Spanish. Even in my own local area, there are certain parts of my own historic town that I've been driving in which there are whole neighborhoods now which all the signs are in Spanish, and that was not the case 20 years ago. What is going on? You're seeing a mass displacement of Americans because of economic incentives. Businesses know that they can pay people under the table illegally for a much lower rate than they are supposed to when it comes to native-born American citizens. This is just absolutely nuts. We did not vote for us. Now, this second individual that you guys can see on the right, his philosophical worldview is just nuts, in my opinion. Let's go ahead and give it a listen.
You get behind this. You spend your life and your family, your dad spend a life in the immigration area. Can you get behind the Dignity Act?
My late father was John Lennon's lawyer, and I had the privilege of representing Mrs. Trump. We're blessed with wonderful people that have come through America's golden doors. It's a step in the right direction. It may not be what Democrats necessarily want, but the conversation of onboarding America's talent is good business. It's very valuable for us not to only stop bad people from coming through the border.
Right.
I'm a former federal prosecutor myself, but to also onboard foreign students who are paying tuition, and then we compete against them when they go to another country. But to onboard people into the workforce, to fix the broken immigration system. It was President Reagan, a former Democrat, who later in life as a Republican gave 3 million green cards to people in 1986 that could prove they were here unlawfully in 82. We don't have enough beds, handcuffs, and cars to move 25 plus million people out. The question is, are we going to take that golden tool in our toolbox, that very DNA of America, that Lady Liberty portends, that very special thing that our founding documents and parents envisioned, and that is a country made up of people with accents, whether they pray on a Friday, a Saturday, or a Sunday, but will help build America's future together. We're not going to deport them. We need to onboard them properly.
I want you to both weigh in real quick. And Trump feels that way. This meat pack.
It's just absolutely nuts. Essentially, in his worldview, whoever you pray to, as long as you decide, if you go to the mosque on Friday, if you go to the synagogue on Saturday, if you go to the church on Sunday, no matter what language you speak, whether it's English or not, as long as you come here and you fulfill, this is what our founding fathers would want. It's just absolutely nuts. And we all know it's nuts, but unfortunately, people are going to continue to spout off this. The problem is this individual's worldview, it's a perversion of even classical liberalism, which is interesting because, again, classical liberalism, it's taken the beating over the last half decade or so, decade, when it comes to some of its philosophical weaknesses and how it's kind of allowed for some of this to happen. But truth be told, it's actually a perversion of classical liberalism in many regards. This individual is essentially asserting that to be part of an American nation requires you just to have some form of legal citizenship and some, quote unquote, subservient view of, or I should say assent to rather, of American principles. But let me press on that and see if that's true. Let's say, hypothetically, that these individuals who come here in mass numbers, they do get their legal papers, but let's say they don't believe in American ideals as enumerated by the U.S. Constitution. Are they American? What about all the leftists that were born here, but they don't hold on to U.S. ideals as endowed in the Constitution? Are they American? You can say maybe that they're not acting like an American because an American should be supporting the ideals founded in our Constitution, which I hold to be sacred and I agree with. But rather, no, that doesn't make any sense. If only America is nothing more than a propositional nation, or sola propositional nation, then things become problematic when individuals, whether they be of a foreign born or a native born, reject those ideals. Because by that definition, they would no longer be an American, but that, of course, would be preposterous. So therefore, something more happens to be what an American is. Well, when you look at the writings of the founding fathers, when you look at the vast majority of American presidents, they didn't have great hatred toward individuals who were foreign born, but they recognized that the American ethos, kind of like if you go back and you read the great Furnace speech given by Teddy Roosevelt, when he likens the American ethos, if you will, or ethos, to many different tribes who have come together, mostly from Europe, they're represented by logs, and they all go into a furnace, and the furnace burns them up, but creates one large fire because of it. All of our groups, whether they be Spanish or German or English, etc., they all come together and they become one great furnace, one great pyre. However, they had something still in common. They came from a same general area, if you will. The American continent is rooted in European ideals, and to just completely ignore that or to think that that's offensive is nuts, because that's our heritage. That's where we come from. Now, does that mean that a person who, say, for instance, when we look at the American context today, the millions of African descendant people here are who are descended from slaves, that they're not American? No, absolutely not. Does that mean that people who have been here a long time from Spanish-speaking countries can't be American? Of course not. But when we look at the majority, we recognize that the majority of American influence and ideals come from Europe. It would dictate that if we replace the native-born population in a very quick time frame with millions and millions of people from foreign nations, that things will not go well. Unfortunately, this seems to be the policy of many in the GOP. Now, do I think the Dignity Act will pass? I don't. I think that it would be political suicide, particularly headed up to a midterm election. But this stench, if you will, continues to just be like a gadfly around the Republican Party. The Republican Party, it needs some major reform. It's taken some good steps in the last 20 years or so, but it has a lot of reform to go, and there are some major problems with it. There needs to be groups, political groups, that hold the Republican Party accountable, and that's why I think one of the reasons right now that the right wing is so divided is because there is not, if you will, a standard for people to rally around behind that's a non-political party that can actually pressure the parties in order to get things accomplished. This stuff is just nuts, but unfortunately it's going to continue to go on. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Make sure and like this video and share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. God bless you guys and have a great day.